We have Senator Boozman from Arkansas and Scott's from Arkansas, so I think you may want to say something about our next witness.
Well, very much so, and I apologize. After Scott testifies, I've got to run to a VA hearing and talking about overprescribing opioids, so there's all kinds of important things that are going on, but I do want to thank all of you for being here. I'm very familiar with the work that you've done. You're great examples of people that are using your time, your resources for those that simply have no constituency at all. So, in the sense of representation. Scott, it's a real honor to have you here. Scott's a guy that just felt called to jump out and do something for his fellow man, and as a result, through his efforts and hard work, I think has raised the GDP of Rwanda about 1% by giving him a worldwide ability to sell their coffee, at the international market versus, So again, we appreciate your example, appreciate all you've done, as the other witnesses. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Ford.
Senator Graham, Senator Boozman from the great state of Arkansas, thank you very much. Nice to be here with you. We could play a bit of a game here. One of these is not like the other. I'm just from the private sector. I didn't even know a lot of this was going on when I stumbled into the coffee business in Rwanda a few years ago. But I have learned the important powers of how the private sector and the public sector, even from the United States, can meet in places like East Africa and radically change people's lives. And I think that accrues to our collective, both continents' collective benefit. I was the CEO of a company called Altel Corporation until we sold it to Verizon in 2009. I'd been doing charity work in Rwanda for several years before that. And I had spent some time, considerable time, with the president of Rwanda, Paul Kagame. I discovered in some of those discussions that he and we're a bit of an outlier in this regard. We had a common philosophy around the role of the state and what it can and can't do, and the role of business and what it can and can't do. I'll sum it up to say this: the crux of our conversations centered around a shared belief that the state, through its attendant bureaucracies, can, from the top down, bring safety and security, political freedom, and even religious freedom. But it is materially limited in its ability to bring economic freedom. It's the final fruit of the tree, if you will. It's economic freedom that is actually only created in the private sector when people that have learned how to organize and manage a for-profit business then mentor other people in that process. Paradoxically, the group that benefits the most from a free market private enterprise system is not the richest of the rich. They're everywhere in the world. It's actually the poorest of the poor. President Kagame challenged me, if I ever got an opportunity, to come back to Rwanda to invest in a business that, in his words, said, help the poorest of the poor taste the benefits of the free market system. He says, because once they do, they won't settle for a government that won't give it to them. So I went back. Altel sold in 2009, and I went back, frankly, not sure that I could find anything to do in Rwanda. But I thought, well, I'll honor the request, and I'll go look, and I'll at least be able to report that I looked. I got to Rwanda, and I found out that I looked at a whole host of things that too long to go through here. But I ran into the fact that 20% of the people in Rwanda make their income, their cash income, from the coffee business, and that there were just 2 exporters that dominated the coffee trade. I then figured out that they weren't paying the highest price for the coffee to the farmers that they could have, and that there was room for a third party to come in and pay more to the farmers and still make a profit, because I have to make a profit or I don't get to sustain the work. So we started looking through how could we go into the coffee business. We really didn't know much about it. We just bought an old abandoned bankrupt mill at auction. We revitalized it, and we hung a shingle out, and we went into business. In the first 6 months of our operations, we saw the price that the farmers in Rwanda received increase 30 to 50%. That was the power of somebody just setting on a reasonable price in terms of the cost of the product. In addition, we have invested money on helping them improve their yields, helping them improve the quality. All of this translates directly into income. We were successful in Rwanda. We expanded into Tanzania with Tembo Coffee Company. We then partnered with Falcon Coffee out of the United Kingdom, and we finance and procure coffee from other parts of East Africa I think we're one of the largest specialty exporters out of Uganda, Ethiopia, and now behind the leadership of the Eastern Congo Initiative, and really closely right behind. It's kind of like going to, we had the United States ask us, would you go to Congo? And I said, not without Batman, you know. And when Batman showed up, we went to Eastern Congo, and we have actually been doing the logistics and financial support of his project, and as we try to get that coffee out to market. We then, I don't know what I was thinking, but we started a coffee roasting business. It's westrockcoffee.com, because I'm running out of time. Thank you for the ability to make the plug. Starting these businesses from scratch in this part of the world, if my wife and my father stood with me, and everybody else said I was a madman, but we have seen $100 million of incremental income go into the pockets of the Rwandan farmers from our being on the ground there over the last 6 years. That's a 50% increase in their standard of living. How do you impact 20% of the United States with a 50% increase in their standard of living? I don't know how to do it, and I couldn't have believed it was possible in just the private enterprise system, but it was because we got there, and there were groups that were funded by the U.S. government and by philanthropists like Mr. Affleck and Mr. Gates, like TechnoServe, the Eastern Congo Initiative, the German Investment and Development Corp, all of these groups that are spending money to help the co-ops on the ground get their act together, get their accounting together, be able to function as a community under the rule of law. That's all supported by NGOs that are supported in turn by the U.S., and we have been building on that to translate the income differences into the Rwandan farmer. I'll say this as a final moment. I recognize in today's panel that we're just one company operating in a limited sphere of influence. I'm good with that, but I hope that we serve as at least an example of what an American private sector actor can look like when we align with like-minded organizations. We can produce benefits that the poorest of the poor can literally taste. And I think that accrues to America's, I think it accrues to America's credit. If you want to ask questions about that and how that ripples into policy and things like that, I'd be glad to answer it. But it's an honor to be here today, and I appreciate the invitation.